All right, I'm doing a spoiler review on Venom. Uh, I gotta say, it's a weird move to make this movie. I've done this review before, but the audio was all kinds of messed up, so I'm redoing it now. Now, my thoughts on Venom. My first initial reaction to hearing Venom getting a solo movie without Spider-Man, and that it would be an origin. I felt that was very troublesome, and frankly, I thought it would be stupid to try to do. It's a very strange thing to do because Venom himself, now general audiences won't know this, but people familiar with Spider Man and Venom will know this that Venom has those eyes and that big spider on his chest because he was first attached to Spider Man. That's where he got the web shooting stuff from. And but it can still work. They don't put the spider on his chest in here. He does have the big eyes, and they just used a symbiote like to instead of a spider web. So Venom, man, I will say that this movie's got some pretty funny stuff going on in it. It does have some good comedy. It's got some decent action, not a lot of it. And there's only a couple of action scenes, and most of them just aren't great. They're not great. Uh, My favorite one is probably Venom fighting the SWAT team. He's fully decked out, suited up, big, muscular, hulking juggernaut, the way Venom should be. He's got his tongue all hanging out and all that. This movie was originally billed as going to be rated R, but it got changed to PG-13, and I suspect that there was some kind of incentive for them to do that. Maybe them thinking they could do a Venom Spider-Man crossover if they tone down the violence or whatever nonsense. I don't really know. Or maybe it was just to broaden their audience who could come see their film. But Venom's a pretty dark character. Now, I first became familiar with Venom in the 1990s when I watched the Spider Man animated series, and there was this big arc in which dealing with Venom, the origins of Venom, Eddie Brock, and all that. And my cousin he's rest in peace to him. He would have really enjoyed this. Uh, Even though it's not very accurate to Venom, he did enjoy those Resident Evil movies, and they weren't very accurate to the games, so he probably would have really enjoyed this, despite it not being that great in my opinion. Um, so Venom, man, uh, Eddie Brock, this movie's billed as an anti-hero movie, but it's not really an anti-hero movie. Sure, Venom does some pretty dark things, like he wants to bite people's head off and stuff, but for the most part, Eddie Brock keeps him in check on that. However, Venom tends to do whatever he wants when he wants to for the majority of the other time, so it doesn't really make sense why he listens to Eddie on not killing people. But damn, I mean, Venom looks great. He does. He looks great, but this movie is just stupid. Honestly, I did not like it. It's very straightforward, though. I mean, you have Eddie Brock, who's this popular reporter, and he's known for pushing the hard questions, asking controversial stuff, and pushing for answers, and it's made him popular. But his boss tells him not to do it. This time, he goes through he's got this big interview coming up. He goes through his girlfriend's computer and learns that there's accusations against this guy he's supposed to be interviewing and his whole scientific life foundation or whatever it is. And Eddie presses him for questions. Eddie gets thrown out. Eddie gets fired. Eddie gets dumped by his girlfriend. And then he's just in a downward spiral. He cannot get employment or anything. And then a woman that he had met earlier from that foundation comes to him trying to get him to help check this out because the guy that runs that foundation has been throwing homeless people and innocents to these symbiotes and getting them killed because they're not compatible with the symbiotes and they can't bond. So they've been signing waivers, not understanding what they're signing until it's too late and they're dead. I do like how they actually had the symbionts retrieved from a space shuttle that is somewhat accurate. But Eddie himself, he's not really like the slimy sleazebag type dude that he should be. Eddie Brock hates humanity. Eddie resents everyone and everything. He hates Spider Man. He's not a good reporter. He throws people under the bus. He tries to frame Spider Man. Will ruin lives if it gets him the scoop. He tries to frame Spider Man just to appeal to Jameson. Uh, that's who Eddie Brock is. So, anyways, in the movie, that's not who Eddie Brock is. Eddie Brock is this hard hitting reporter that gets the job done. He asks the questions, and he's popular until it all goes to hell. Anyways, he goes there with that woman. He ends up with a symbiote attached to him, and then a bunch of weirdness just ensues. It just follows as Eddie's hearing voices in his head, which is a symbiote talking to him. Eddie's eating weird things, and Tool. He figures out what's going on, and then him and Venom team up for a little bit there until he rejects the symbiote because, according to his girlfriend and her doctor boyfriend, it's killing him. Yet, in the very next scene, after making such a big deal to get off him, it gets back on him through her. I realized that Venom was controlling her, but it gets back on him through her. And then, even when it's off her, she's suddenly fine with it. She's suddenly fine and supportive of him using that symbiote. I guess you could say it's because there's an emergency at foot with the main bad guy who suddenly decided he got taken over by Simeon himself when he was trying to procure Eddie Brock, having his men hunt down Eddie because Eddie and the symbiote were bonding well, and he wanted to kill Eddie and get the symbiote back. And it all happens very fast. Like he gets taken the guy that runs this foundation gets taken over by a symbiote, and then he decides he wants to launch a rocket out into space to go get more symbionts, bring them back here, and take over the world. And then Venom decides that, you know, he wants to save this planet. He doesn't want more symbionts coming. He hates Riot. He's a loser on his planet, and all this and that. Yes, it's kind of like a buddy cop movie almost. It does kind of feel like the 90s. It takes place in San Francisco instead of New York, unlike, you know, the comics. It takes a lot of departures from the comics. And I personally just did not find hardly any of it entertaining. Venom looks great. He looks spectacular. I like the weirdness of when Eddie was doing all kinds of weird stuff, not really understanding what was going on. He was getting sick. He was trying to eat a bunch of stuff. He was behaving odd. But for the most part, this movie really sucks, in my opinion. Um, the action scenes, there's only like one great action scene, in my opinion. And when Riot and Venom are fighting, it kind of looks silly because they're fumbling around and stuff. Now, a lot of people said that, with the Hulk and Abomination, but I actually liked that, even though the CGI wasn't the greatest. I actually liked that fight between Hulk and Abomination. A lot of people will probably criticize me for that, but here I just don't like this fight. And if I remember correctly, Riot's supposed to be this huge symbiote, like this very tall purple symbiote. Anyways, in the end, as far as his girlfriend knows, is that symbiote's dead. But I have some real questions about this. Okay, so outside of the movie, I'll probably bring this up in a. Well, no, I'll just address it here. What is the deal? So Venom likes that he likes Michelle Williams' character. I can't remember her name, but Eddie's ex girlfriend. He likes her. He wants Eddie and her to have a thing together again, so much so that when he gets on her, and we get to see She-Venom, that was cool. But so much so when he gets on her, he makes out with Eddie, and obviously it's him trying to reignite that fire that they used to have. Not him wanting to make out with Eddie personally. But what happens if Venom gets what he wants? What happens if these two get back together? I mean, he's in Eddie's head full time. So, I mean, is he going to be talking to Eddie when Eddie's having sex with his girlfriend? Well, I mean, what's going on there? What's going on there? Is he going to be like talking dirty to her while Eddie's doing her? Or is he going to grow the head out the side like he did a couple times there? He stretched out to talk to Eddie like he has a little symbiote head talking to Eddie face to face. I mean, it's pretty weird thing, and I only think about this because he's in Eddie's head all the time, talking to me, and he's encouraging this relationship. But what happens? What happens when he gets this relationship? Is he gonna regret it? Is he gonna find out what humans do to each other and freak out and start screaming or something? Like, what are you doing? Stop! Uh, just makes me wonder how split personality relationships work. I mean, very weird stuff. That this movie was weird enough to kind of trigger that thought process with me. So, I don't know. Comment down below. Let me know what you think of that weirdness. But I have to rate this movie a 1 out of 10. Really, the only thing that was great about it to me was that Venom looked like the hulking monster he should be. And, there was good comedy, there was some good production values, and there were some bad ones. There was some good CGI, there was some bad. Uh, but I just can't separate this from what I know about Venom. I can't do that. This could have been done all different types of ways. I can't. It did tease in the end though that Carnage will be in the sequel, but I just couldn't get past this weirdness. So 1 out of 10 for me. Subscribe, ring that notification bell, give me a ball boy thumbs up. Comment down below. Let me know what you think of this stuff. What did you think of this movie? Did you actually like it? Did you enjoy it? Are you looking forward to the sequel? What do you think about that weird split personality and threesome? That weird sexual situation that Venom's gonna find himself involved in if he gets what he wants, which is Michelle Williams' character and Eddie back together. So let me know what you think of that weirdness. Uh, anyways, stay awesome. Rock on.